an exiled scientist, created something impossible. Unmistakably human. Undeniably animal. On the island of Dr. Moreau.
I'd like to present my children.
Welcome back to Disaster Piece Theater, the show where we dig deep into the messiest, most chaotic, and utterly baffling films ever unleashed on the public. I'm Sean Weathers.
And I'm Angus Combe. Today we're diving face first into one of the most infamous production nightmares in film history, The Island of Dr. Moreau, 1996.
It's a movie about man, beast, and Brando, with a behind-the-scenes story that's somehow even weirder than what made it into the final cut.
Let's set the scene. The Island of Dr. Moreau is based on the 1896 H.G. Wells novel of the same name, and this wasn't its first adaptation. The story had already been brought to life twice before, once in 1932, Island of Lost Souls, and again in 1977.
But this one? This one was going to be the definitive version. At least, that's what New Line Cinema thought when they greenlit the film in the mid-90s with director Richard Stanley, the mind behind cult hits like Hardware.
Stanley was a passionate fan of the source material. He had a unique vision, he spent years developing the script, and he even got Marlon Brando on board. What could possibly go wrong?
There was something like 44 main unit days where not one shot was actually taken, where a setup never came together. So everyone would just spend the entire day sitting around in full makeup, melting in the sunshine and waiting for something to happen.
Everything went wrong.
Let's talk about the production, or what barely qualifies as one. First of all, Stanley was completely overwhelmed. He wasn't used to studio politics or handling massive egos, and unfortunately for him, this project had two of the biggest, Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando.
Kilmer showed up late, refused to do scenes, and clashed with everyone, especially Stanley. Meanwhile, Brando, grieving the recent death of his daughter, showed up completely checked out. He barely learned his lines and often insisted on improvising entire scenes.
He never would learn his lines, and he had Carolyn, his assistant, read lines from the trailer into his little earpiece.
Stanley was fired just days into shooting, and in a move straight out of a Coen Brothers movie, he snuck back onto the set disguised as one of the animal extras. No joke. He hid in a costume and watched the wreckage unfold.
After about 10 minutes, I was able to take the dog mask off because there was no one left on the crew who recognized me. Everyone had been fired.
John Frankenheimer was brought in to replace Stanley. He was a veteran director, a fixer, essentially. But even he couldn't salvage what was quickly spiraling into one of the most chaotic productions in Hollywood history.
I remember Frankenheimer trying to talk to him about the scene and Marlon saying, no. Instead of it being about violence and all this pain and suffering, I think that all of the animal people should get together and there should be a grand celebration like a bar mitzvah. And I thought, he's fucking with them.
The cast didn't get along. The crew was constantly reworking the script, and morale was in the toilet. All of this madness behind the scenes spilled over onto the screen.
Let's break this down, starting with what I think the film actually does well. The creatures learn how to remove their implants. It's one of the few story beats that play out logically and with some genuine tension. Casting Marlon Brando as Moreau could have been genius. A legendary actor playing a legendary madman. Brando's mini-me sidekick. The look, the performance, it's ridiculous, yes, but it went on to inspire pop culture moments in South Park, Austin Powers, and more.
What the hell are you supposed to be anyway?
I shall call him Mini-Me.
The movie starts with a completely bonkers fight between three men on a life raft, which culminates in an underwater shark attack. If nothing else, it certainly grabs your attention. For the first 10 minutes or so, you feel like you're watching a story that might actually go somewhere. A shipwrecked man stuck on a strange island where secrets are bubbling beneath the surface. Could have been a recipe for mystery and suspense. The introduction of Fairuza Balk's character adds a promising hint of forbidden romance to the mix, which is always welcome. Now, what doesn't work? Before we even meet Dr. Moreau, the movie explodes in a chase sequence which reveals the ugly truth about the island and its inhabitants, taking away any sense of mystery or intrigue. Moreau's assistant, Montgomery, should be a good man fallen from grace who winds up helping the hero. But Val Kilmer's Montgomery is hard to read, kind of creepy, and fails to redeem himself in the end. Compared to the original Island of Lost Souls, this movie has less story, less developed characters, and less believable human drama. And it's half an hour longer.
The performances, by the entire cast, especially the two stars. Regardless of the personal issues Brando and Kilmer were going through, what ended up on screen is some of their worst work. It's unprofessional and embarrassingly bad.
Just one day I said, "Can we talk?" And he said, what is it, dear? And I said, "I don't know, just in terms of our characters and how they relate, I'd love to have some time to do that." And he said, "No, this is all insane. I'm getting paid. You're getting paid. None of the scripts make any sense, so why worry? You know, just relax, do what you're doing, you're beautiful, don't worry about it." And I said, "But I mean, how the characters relate, isn't there?" I didn't read the script.
The exposition dump, where Fairuza Balk's character overhears a conversation to learn a major plot twist? That's not cinematic. That's daytime soap opera or sitcom energy. David Thewlis, our lead, is relegated to a bystander. Things just happen around him. He barely drives the story. Characters die without completing arcs or contributing meaningfully to the plot. It makes their journeys and the whole film feel pointless. Overall, the film is dull, bloated, and swings wildly between tones. It tries to be a philosophical horror, but it's incoherent with clunky dialogue, inconsistent creature effects, and baffling choices across the board.
You and I are going to rewrite the script, and we'll spend 6 or 8 weeks rewriting it because I have some ideas about how Dr. Moreau should be wearing a hat all the time, and at the end of the movie takes off his hat and he's actually a dolphin. So then I knew we were in serious bad shape.
And then it has the nerve to try and end on a deep message about humanity and nature, man playing God. Come on! In this movie? Are we fucking serious?
The Island of Dr. Moreau is so over-the-top, campy, and strange, it feels almost like a deliberate parody. Brando's Moreau looks like a bloated ogre who hasn't seen the sun in 50 years. When he speaks about his crazy experiments, he has the energy of Frankenheimer from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I half expected him to say, "It's time for the floor show," and burst into song. Kilmer's Montgomery starts weird and gets weirder, until he parades around doing a full-on impression of Marlon Brando, although not quite Brando as Moreau, more like Brando from The Godfather. But after building up Moreau and Montgomery as such strange and unique villains, the filmmakers have the nerve to eject them before the end of the story, leaving some of their creations to become the villains. But they're really just victims of Moreau and Montgomery, aren't they? In the original movie, Dr. Moreau gets his comeuppance at the very end, and that feels much more satisfying.
The Island of Dr. Moreau 96. What's left to say? It's more than just a misfire. It's a cinematic black hole where talent, money, and sanity went to die. You watch it, and you don't just see a bad movie. You feel the psychic residue of its creation. The clashes, the desperation, the sheer, what the hell are we even making energy radiating off the screen. It's a film haunted by the ghost of better ideas and suffocated by the weight of its own troubled birth. It fails on almost every conceivable level. Yet its failure isn't completely boring. It's operatic. It stands as a garish, unforgettable monument to Hollywood hubris and the spectacular ways things can fly off the rails. This isn't just incompetence. It's a masterclass in catastrophe. And that, my friends, is the very definition of disaster piece theater.
Thanks for watching Disaster Piece Theater.
We dig through the wreckage and the empty boxes of Big Macs that Marlon Brando left behind, so you don't have to.
See you in the next catastrophe.
Okay. He's fat, people, get it? He's fat.
He likes to eat.